So we're here with Professor Barbara Bowley, otherwise known as Sophia in Derby Wars. And just in a couple of years, you've gone from learning handicapping to win the 100K game, and which is amazing in itself. And you've got some great tips to share with the players that I'm sure they'd love to hear.
Well, thank you. I've been looking at the game for that period of time, and I've analyzed it and seen there's about 5 different levels of play. And I've got some ideas for people at all different levels. I think that you can be successful at any point. Starting out with a beginning level. Basically, there's a couple of skills you need to have. You need to have skills at that point with manipulating the site. You need to know how to make a pick. You need to know how to make an alternate pick. You need to make sure you're aware if you're in a lockdown, you've got all your picks ahead of time. And basically, you'll move forward pretty rapidly at this level. Where should you be looking? Maybe at points games all the way up to maybe $20 head-to-heads. And if you can get winners maybe 20 to 30% of the time, you should be doing okay and have a lot of fun starting out.
So those are some great tips to getting started. And what about once you've got your feet wet and you're ready to move to the next level?
Well, I call level 2 the novice level, and at that point you've played maybe about 20 games. Some people progress really rapidly, and this is just a guide, but let's say you played about 20 games. You're finding winners at least 30% of the time, maybe a little more. I think one of the things real early on that helps is to avoid panicking when you are behind. A lot of novice players see that all of a sudden they're not in first and they start stabbing. Stick to your game plan. Have your picks all set ahead of time. Stick to them. Do a calculation based on what the average odds will be for those picks, and see whether or not that's enough to get you to win the contest. You don't have to just automatically jump on a long shot if things don't go your way.
So you're saying when there'd be half of the contest left to go, you might be near the bottom, you might be at 0, but still don't panic. Take a look at some of the horses you're playing, and if you connect on a few and it's enough to get you there, then you don't have to panic and don't have to change your strategy.
Don't have to panic. You need to start getting a little bit strategic at this point in your play, at this level of level 2 or so. So don't just abandon your game. You just have a little confidence in your game. You're starting to develop it, and it's if you stick with it, it's going to work.
So you're saying at the second level, after you played about 20 games, you think that playing contests can actually improve your handicapping at the track?
I found that myself, and I started to notice, well, I'm in the habit of picking winners now in a way that I wasn't before. Mm-hmm. And following some of the top handicappers on the site, I saw the kind of winners they were getting. Look at some consistent players who consistently do well, and you'd be surprised how much your on-track handicapping improves pretty quickly once you start getting in the habit of needing to pick winners, because that's what you need to do on Derby Wars.
That's great, and that is something we've heard from time to time where players are saying that Derby Wars has made them a better handicapper, and that's terrific. And
well, it made me a handicapper, period.
Well, that's amazing,
So,
and you've done an amazing job. And so, okay, now we're getting to intermediate level, and what should a player look for at that level?
after you've played 20 games, and they could be at any level, maybe all of a sudden you find out you're really good, and you can jump up to a higher level game in terms of dollar figures. But you don't have a lot of game experience. You still need to be able to make sure that you don't avoid some fairly rookie mistakes, like jumping off your first choice. I do it still. I kick myself every time I do. I see on the chat, in the chat room, people kicking themselves for doing it. One thing I know as an educator is that in terms of the psychology of choice making, your first choice is always going to be at a higher percentage of accuracy than any subsequent choice.
Wow.
So stay with that first choice unless you really see something bad coming down the line. You see your horse completely looking awful in the post parade or something, and I don't mean just a little sweaty. I mean falling apart.
Right.
Just stick with what you've got. Your first choice is always your best choice.
And you said one of the tips for rapid improvement is kind of reverse engineering what the top players are doing?
I did that. I shadowed some of the top players, and I looked at how they played the game. And I found that I learned so quickly through experience. It's hard to find. It's hard to buy the kind of experience you can get by looking at really good players. It's hard to find books that'll show you exactly how to do that, to do what they do, because while I don't, and I'm not saying don't look at a handicapping book. They're certainly very useful. There's some good books on tournaments out there. Actually, there's only one really good one, I think. At this point,
right.
we're kind of we need more on that. But don't forget that you've got a wealth of experience worth a lot of money in somebody else's example sitting there at Derby Wars. And I think at the intermediate level, that's the way to go. Start watching out what the top players are playing.
That's great advice. And so now once you get past the intermediate level, we're getting to the upper echelons. An advanced player, what should a player be looking for?
Well, at this point, you need to shift your game beyond just finding winners. You need to find value. You need to find value winners. You need to find those winners that are 6-1, maybe even higher if you can find them at this point. I think doing that puts you out on the tightrope a little bit, and sometimes you're going to crash. So it's a little bit of a tricky point in your evolution as a handicapper or evolution as a contest player, Derby Wars. But don't forget, you're never as good as you think you are on your best day, but you're never as bad as you think you are on your worst day either. What you do is a fairly small sample of work, so you're going to have a lot of fluctuation in it. This is, in general, a low probability game as it is. It's like baseball. You're doing well if you can pick winners 50-60% of the time. You're doing an incredible job.
That's amazing. Yeah, baseball 300 hitter, and you're
exactly.
all-star.
You're an all-star. So think more along the lines of this is more like baseball than oh my God, I'm not picking the winner every race. What happened? What's wrong with my handicapping?
Yeah, that's great advice, and definitely the game changes. And you're saying then also at this elite level, you need to think differently than the other players, or
at the ultimate level, the elite level, if you want to really make noise at the top levels of Derby Wars or even at the national level, you need to start thinking outside of the box. You need to be able to find your own path to whatever it takes to think differently than other people. I call it the art of thinking differently, but you'll hear it from all kinds of handicappers. They'll say, well, I fish in a different pond, or I think outside of the box. You've got to start developing your own style that finds those winners that are just not found by a large percentage of the rest of the handicapping population. Even the fairly good value horses, you've got to find horses that are even better than a good value horse to get to the top level. When you do that, and you do that on Derby Wars, you're gonna get a cash stream coming your way. It's a really nice way to make some additional income. That's
terrific. You can master handicapping contests, get some money coming in and be paid for it.
Yeah.
That's a perfect way to enjoy the races and make some money at
the
same time.
It's a great hobby.
Well, you've certainly done a great job and an amazing job of getting there in just a couple of years to to have so many big wins and to have a regular cash flow from contests. Just speaks to how advanced of a handicapper you are, and one of the elite handicappers on Derby Wars.
Well, if I can do it, you can do it. I mean that. I mean, I've given you some keys here to get a sense of where you are and where you can go and what you need to get there. And I believe that if I can get there in a couple of years, that people who've probably got better skills than I do can get there even faster. So give it a shot.
Well, there you go. Some great advice from the professor. Listen to your professor, Professor Barbara Bowley, and otherwise known as Sophia on Derby Wars, 100K winner, very accomplished contest player, and we'll look for you in big wins in the future.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.